Hello everyone, welcome to IMPRINT IELTS. I am Varun Khodar, and today what we're doing, we're looking at political parties from 1947 to 64. But in this chapter, we're discussing about the Congress. So right, understand कि जो Indian National Congress है वो थोड़ी अलग है दूसरी पार्टी से. It had everyone. So if you think about today, Indian National Congress might not be what the Indian National Congress of 1947 was. At that time, all the communists, all the socialists, everyone, right? The rightist, every right wing, everybody was in the Congress itself. And that has evolved across time. And what was the debate after Congress? Because when after independence, what happened was Gandhi thought that maybe the Congress should be dismantled, right? There was a sizable portion that people thought that Congress was indispensable. So with that, let's start this chapter, right? So chapter number 14, political parties. तो एक बात समझिए पहले तो कि इंडिया ही एक ऐसा देश है जहां पर पोस्ट कॉलोनियल जैसे आफ्टर 1930 कि अंग्रेज जब चले गए, डच, फ्रेंच वगैरह, बेल्जियम वगैरह, तो हम सस्टेन्ड पार्लियामेंट्री डेमोक्रेसी ताकि इलेक्शन होते रहे हैं ओवर द लास्ट 50, नाउ इवन मोर देन दैट. सो इट 1947 से अब 2019 आ गया है, सो मोर देन 70 years वी हैव बीन doing really well. Okay, we still have democracy, that is. Okay, there are some policies, obviously, the ideals that we have not reached, the bottom of the pyramid. But अगर देखा जाए कि हम एटलीस्ट ये कह सकते हैं कि हमने हमेशा इलेक्शन करवाए हैं हर 5 साल में, ठीक है. सो if you think about it. Now remember, independence के बाद क्या हुआ? Throughout the Nehru years, which is 1947 to 64, the Congress was the most politically dominant power. कि कांग्रेस की ही पावर थी, चाहे स्टेट में हो या सेंटर में हो, कांग्रेस की ही चलती थी, ठीक है ना. साइमल्टेनियसली लेकिन क्या हुआ कि हमने और पार्टीज को भी किया. हम दूसरी पार्टीज के बारे में अगले, जैसे भारतीय जनसंघ, सोशलिस्ट पार्टीज, ठीक है ना, उनके बारे में हम अगले चैप्टर में ज्यादा बात करेंगे. सो अ पॉलिटिकल पार्टी सिस्टम बेस्ड ऑन फ्री कंपटीशन अमंग पार्टीज एंड अ स्ट्रॉन्ग parliamentary institutions also have developed from the beginning. So the Congress Party, the Socialist Party, the Communist Party, the Kisan Mazdoor Praja Party, which was by Acharya Kripalani, the Bharatiya Janasangh, have been functioning since 1951. ठीक है ना? And ये जितनी भी parties हैं crucial रही हैं for the development of parliamentary democracy. Okay, very interestingly, all of them, चाहे किसान मजदूर सभा हो, चाहे भारतीय जनसंघ हो, इसमें इनका सब नेचर इंडियन कैरेक्टर था, parochial नहीं थे. पॉलिटिकल बेस्ड दो इनके और क्लास सेक्शन ऑफ सोसाइटी या स्पेसिफिक एरिया में थे, बट इनके जो आइडियाज थे ऑल इंडिया इश्यूज पे थे. दे हैड नेशनल ऑब्जेक्टिव्स, दे सस्टेन्ड ऑल इंडिया लीडरशिप, दे पुट फॉरवर्ड प्रोग्राम्स जो पूरे देश के बारे में सोचते थे हमेशा. सो बहुत ही अलग टाइप की पॉलिटिकल पार्टी एग्जिस्ट करी, जैसे आज वैसा नहीं है. ठीक है, अकाली दल सिर्फ पंजाब के बारे में सोचता है, ठीक है ना. एसपी बीएसपी इज मोर ऑफ अ यूपी बेस्ड पार्टी. डीएमके इज फ्रॉम the south, like Tamil Nadu. So they're very, very parochial parties, which was not the case. They always had national objectives. Like today we have a fight over getting special status, special category status. But Andhra Pradesh wants special category status. इस पे ही TDP ने resign कर दिया था from the Modi government. So that tells you something about how things have evolved. So though the opposition parties remained individually weak compared to the Congress in terms of mass support, they were pretty active. Now most interesting चीज कि जब 1951, 52, 57, 62 के पहले 3 इलेक्शन हुए, तो they captured 26% to 28% overall seats. Again, they fared even better in assembly elections. They got even 40%, and they could actually exercise a great deal of influence on public policies. And one of them, but problem क्या है, जैसे आजकल के केस में है कि महागठबंधन कभी साथ में नहीं होता, वैसे यहीं पे सेम बात है कि opposition parties remained weak in the period because of the inability to unite. It was only after the left and right party united, formally or informally, they defeated the Congress in 1977 and 89. So if you think about 2014 elections of the Modi government, this was a watershed moment, definitely, right? Because previously Congress had never lost, right, so openly before. Okay, so the Indian National Congress was then the most important political organization in India at independence and throughout the Nehru era. It enjoyed legitimacy as the leader and heir of the national movement, right? Nehru was there. Nehru's actually lived 10 years in jail. He was chosen by Mahatma Gandhi. He was accepted by others. We'll talk about the other leaders in a bit. So Congress, what it did was it gave a major, stable government. It was a major instrument of the political stability of India. Very interestingly, but what happened was, as I said before, that there was a debate कि कांग्रेस को मूवमेंट से पार्टी में तब्दील होना चाहिए कि नहीं होना चाहिए, कांग्रेस को ट्रांसफॉर्म होना चाहिए फ्रॉम अ movement into a party or not. And but what happened was no real break occurred immediately after. And that was a problem. Problem became that it could no longer be a leader of a mass movement. But the question became whether it could become a modern party. तो कांग्रेस अब मास मूवमेंट नहीं है, अब गवर्नमेंट बनाएंगे, सरकार चलानी है, तो जो सरकार चलानी है उसकी कैरेक्टरिस्टिक अलग होते हैं, ब्रॉड कोएलिशन चाहिए होता है उसके लिए, राइट? तो सरकार चलाएंगे नहीं चलाएंगे, तो ये बहुत बड़ा क्वेश्चन था. सो सरदार पटेल के इनिशिएटिव पे उन्होंने क्या किया कि प्रोविजन रखती है कांग्रेस के अंदर. पहले होता था कि आप कांग्रेस के भी मेंबर हो सकते हैं, किसी और पार्टी के भी. अब ऐसा इन्होंने बोला कि नहीं, ऐसा नहीं होगा, या तो आप कांग्रेस के होंगे या कहीं और के. सो कांग्रेस सोशलिस्ट एंड कम्युनिस्ट जो इसके मेंबर थे, ठीक है ना, वो अब व्हाट हैपेंड वाज वो चले गए. And socialists decided to leave the Congress, and this was a blow to the broad-based character of the political party, right? And that's why the BJP loves Sardar Patel, because remember, BJP being a right-wing party, Sardar Patel made Congress into a right-wing party in some ways, right? Jawaharlal Nehru obviously wanted to retain the all-embracing consensus character of the Congress, and that became a huge problem. He was unwilling to divide the party along left and right lines and stayed with the Congress, as did a number of Congress socialists who saw Congress under Nehru as more effective instruments of social change. I think it would have been a very different thing. What if, when Nehru would have actually left the Congress, what would have happened then? That's something nobody knows now. Congress did, of course, became after 1947 a distinct political party, competing with other political parties for political power. So obviously the views, there became a debate. Now there's a party president, that is, right? And at the same time, there is a head of the legislative wing, which is the prime minister. So who's going to be the one? How the reconciliation is going to happen? Who's going to decide the policies that will happen in India? So that became the major problem, right? So Congress, remember, during this period, remained a political party with the center or middle of left orientation, that is left of center party, though it had right and left minorities at its flanks. Remember, what did Congress stood for? Congress चाहता था कि राष्ट्रवाद हो, obviously nationalism, economic development हो, social justice, redistribution of wealth हो, equalization of opportunities हो, which was obviously by broad areas. ये सोचा गया कि हम ग्रोथ चाहिए हमें, ठीक है ना, लेकिन सोशल जस्टिस भी चाहिए, ठीक है ना. ऐसा नहीं होना चाहिए कि पिछड़े वर्ग के लोगों को कुछ ना मिले. अब ये आइडिया था. अब वो इम्प्लीमेंट कितना वो अलग डिबेट है, बट आइडिया यही था, ठीक है ना. Despite the fact that Congress became more and more right wing later, and the economy was captured by the right wing forces, if you think about it, Congress always said that it wanted a left of center orientation. Okay. So what was the importance? Why was in this being left of center party really helped with Congress? So the opposition parties, other than the communal parties, were able to influence it through their mass agitation and like-minded groups within, which always existed in the Congress, right? So that was extremely good. Then there was a conciliatory approach that opposition parties were open to absorption. Even today, if you think about the Congress, it is always willing to talk to other political parties. The opposition parties, both of the left and right, tended to define themselves in extreme terms in order to prevent their cadres and followers from being adopted or co-opted. Initially, Congress was seen to be somebody who would be like Ajkat and तो उनको थोड़ा एक्सट्रीम में सोचना था. not तो उनको बहुत एक्सट्रीम वे में बोलना पड़ा कि हम बेसिकली द्राविडम के लिए हैं, ठीक है ना, राइट. अगर वो ये नहीं बोलते तो ऑब्वियसली को-ऑप्टेड या अब्सॉर्ब हो जाते. That was the thought process. Now, as I said, there was a debate. The debate was leadership of the party versus the government. So in November 1946, Nehru joined the interim government and resigned from the political party presidentship on the ground that two roles of the leader of the government and the president of the party could not be combined. J.P. Kripalani didn't agree with this. He said that the working committee should have a direct role of government policy making, and all government decisions should be taken in consultation with them. So it's more of a NAC concept, right? Okay, like if you think about the RSS and the BJP today. Uh, Nehru and Sardar Patel said, no, we don't agree with it. And he said that proceedings and paper of the government were secret and could not be divulged to persons outside the government, right? So this was the major debate. The government, in their view, was constitutionally accountable to the elected legislature. It could no case be made accountable to the party. So obviously, the problem is the same, right? That whether you should have a power center outside the government. So obviously, the government, in the view, was constitutionally accountable to the legislature. It could not, in case no case could be made it accountable to the party. So that is obviously the problem of the parliament. So, but Kripalani did not agree to this, and he said that explaining his resignation, he resigned before his 2-year term actually ended. How is the Congress to give the government its active enlightened cooperation unless its highest executive or its popularly chosen head is taken into full confidence on important matters that affect the nation? So what happened was Kripalani was succeeded in office by Rajendra Prasad for 1 year, and then by 2 years by Patabi Sitaramaya. And in time, what actually happened was another crisis, actually broke down between Purushottam Das Tandon and Jawaharlal Nehru. So if you think about it, there was a total hostile attitude, right? Towards Nehru and the government by the Congress party when the socialists actually went away, right? And there were obviously the conservative forces tended to assert themselves and make a bid for the control of the party and the policy of the government. So that was the basic idea behind Purushottam Das Tandon and Kripalani. Let's try to talk about Patel and Nehru's relationship. This is something that I think all of you would love to hear about. So Sardar Patel has been much misunderstood and misinterpreted. Some of them used him to attack Nehru visions and policies. Others have made him to make him something like of a rightist. But actually, if you think he was wrong, though he was undoubtedly the leader of the Congress right wing, he shared the basic values of the national movement. He was committed to democracy, civil liberties, secularism, independent economic development, social reform, and a pro-poor orientation. He stood for abolition of landlordism through payment of compensation. He was a staunch opponent of communalism. He was committed to secularism. Remember, he actually took ruthless action against Reuters, and in 1950 he declared that India is a secular state. We cannot fashion our policies or our conduct in the same way Pakistan does. We must see that our secular ideals are actually realized in practice. Here, every Muslim should feel he's an Indian citizen and has equal rights as a citizen. If we cannot make him feel like this, we shall not be worthy of a heritage in our country. Right. So that was Patel's views. And remember, he was utterly devoid of nepotism and corruption. He used to be the major organizer. He used to take funds. He used to actually ask for funds from the capitalist. He collected money from the rich for the nationalist movement, but none dare offer him a paisa for his own family's use. That was his total personal lifestyle. Between Nehru and Patel was highly complex. Historians and political scientists have generally tended to emphasize the difference between them overlooking the commonness. Yes, there were disputes, differences, takrar the kafi, as they say, but they were exaggerated to the extent of falsifying history. A lot of people say what would have happened if Patel had become the president or the prime minister. But many times, right, if you think about him, Nehru and Patel, despite having ideological differences, stayed together. So after 1947, policy differences were many. And there was the two differed on the role and authority of the prime minister, the manner in which the rights of 1947 were to be handled, and the relationship with Pakistan. The election of Purushottam Das Tandon, who was supported by Vallabhbhai Patel, created a wide breach among them. Nehru opposed, though unsuccessfully, Patel's view that the right to property should be included among the fundamental rights of the Constitution. They differed on many different policies. There were offers of resignation by one or the other. There's always a certain tension among them. But the two continued to stick and pull together, and there was no final parting of ways. This was because what united them was more significant and of more abiding value than what divided them. complemented each other. One was a great organizer, the other was able administrator. The other commanded immense mass support and had wide social and development perspective. If anything, Patel buttressed Nehru's role even while challenging it in some respects. Besides, there was a considerable mutual affection and respect for each other, and each recognized the indispensability of the other. Gandhiji's death also made a difference. The two realized that it made the cooperation all the more. Both arrived at an agreement through the process of frank discussion on almost every governmental policy decision. Right? Remember, Patel remained Nehru's loyal colleague, assured him of complete support for his policies, and after Gandhi's death, he repeatedly described Nehru as his leader. And remember, on 14 November 1948, Nehru's birthday, he was to say that Mahatma Gandhi named Nehru's as his heir and successor. And since Gandhiji's death, I've realized leader's judgment was correct. And Nehru reciprocated that the Sardar has been a tower of strength, but for his affection and advice, I would not have been able to run the state. So at that time, when both of them, were forced, trying to make India into a country, right, and trying to make sure that India stays united, they were together with each other. Okay, the next discussion comes to about two different leaders, Purushottam Das Tandon, the struggle of the right wing, that is, versus Nehru, and this came to the question of election of the party president and lasted over a year. And obviously, it was important because new officer there would play a decisive role in the nomination of party candidates in the coming general elections. The three candidates, Purushottam Das Tandon, supported by Patel, J.B. and Shankar Rao Dev. And obviously, Nehru was opposed to Tandon because of its overall conservative outlook. He said that it would be difficult for him to continue as a member of the working committee or even of the government if Tandon were elected. Supporters of Tandon hoped of this election to curb Nehru to change his foreign, economic, and his policies towards Pakistan and the Hindu Code Bill. What happened was in August 1950, Tandon won. Now, Tandon packed the working committee and election committee with his men. But what happened was, after a large deal of trouble, what happened was something very sad. Acharya Kripalani resigned from his party and formed the Kisan Mazdoor Praja Sabha. And even though Nehru and Azad advised against this step, this led to the first division of the Congress. Now, Nehru did now decide to give battle because he realized that it is not possible. Regarding the Congress as indispensable, because Patel had died, he decided to intervene directly into party affairs. While keen to preserve that, okay, we need to maintain the Congress, he said that he has to resign, and asking the congressmen that he had to choose which views has to prevail, his or Tandon's. So there was no doubt, obviously, because without Nehru's leadership and campaigning, they would pretty much lose in the upcoming elections. Tandon, realizing his policy, was no longer, he decided to himself resign. But very smartly, Nehru actually appointed him to the committee, and all said and done, Tandon accepted it, and even Nehru also asked many of the dissidents to rejoin the party, and Rafi Ahmed Kidwai actually did so. So all's well that ends well. Now what happened was a different problem came up. Congress became weaker and weaker organizationally because now, for the first time, Nehru was the president as well as the prime minister. And remember, if that happens, yes, it would allow the government to run well, but it would weaken the political party, and that is what exactly happened. Right. The Congress, obviously realized it could not be two centers of power, and the real power inevitably reside in parliamentary wing. But what has happened is, because of that, the Congress became weaker and weaker, and we'll talk about that. So what happened, if you think about it, is that Nehru and his colleagues neglected the organization and failed to assign its proper cadre tasks and their due honor and importance. There was certainly devaluing people who mattered, prime ministerial chairs. And Sanjeev Reddy says that a junior ministership in the state government was more satisfying than the presidency of the Congress party. It just told you that people didn't want them to actually take a party work. And At the same time, the party still mattered is confirmed by the fact that every person who was a president was a henchman or a sycophant of the prime minister. Now, let's go to the next topic, that is intra-Congress rivalry. There were issues now. Now, the first issue came is that there was increasing corruption, disillusionment, and rules of elan in the Congress party. The next generation was not interested to join the Congress because there was a collapse of morale and idealistic structure that was built during the patronage system had come up in rural areas, leading to the emergence of political brokers and middlemen and vote. And created among the people the image of the Congress as a party of office bearers. There was increasingly loss of idealism, neglect of ideology, especially concerning social welfare and social transformation. Most of the idealistic youth preferred to join the opposition parties, and sometimes we even have the Naxal movement. Idealism tend to go violent very quickly. The Congress thereby failing to train a new generation of leaders to replace those who have been thrown up by the national movement. What it led to was dynastic politics. It is terrible to think that we might be losing all values, that is what Nehru said, and sinking into the sordidness of opportunistic. In 1949, he again said, our standards are falling great. Indeed, we have hardly any standards left except not to be found out. In 1950, he said, we have lost something, the spirit that moves, and unless we recapture that spirit, all our labor will lead little profit. He did say in 1957 to the Congress MPs that the Congress party is weak and getting weaker. Our political point is, power, obviously strong point is in the past. But remember, Nehru was no party organizer or reformer, nor did he or the tall leaders working in the government have time to devote to party organization. Okay, so let's look at the next topic now. The Socialist and the Congress. The departure of the Socialists had actually weakened the radical forces in the Congress. So now what happened was that the places vacated were taken up by vested interest, landlords, rich peasants, even princes. What it did was Congress was seen to be indispensable, and Nehru felt that it would be wrong to divide it or to leave it. Now the Socialists all had the same principles and objectives. And remember, Nehru had great personal regard and affection, especially Jayaprakash Narayan, and was close enough to him in years to address him as Bhaiya, right? So the problem became is that Jayaprakash Narayan and Congress had a very staunchy relationship, right? He wrote to Nehru that you want to go with socialism, but you want the capitalists to help in that, and that's not going to happen. Nehru in March 1947 proposed legislation outlawing strikes in essential services, and this was said to be an early example of growing Indian fascism. That is something that is the case. Jayaprakash Narayan again publicly denounced Nehru naked, open fascism and declared that the government was following faithfully in the footsteps of Hitler in their dealings with labor. And in the general election, despite the fact that they had a relationship, they fought against each other in some ways. Nehru also made the most serious effort to work together in a broad front, right? And he even asked in 1957 to cooperate with the Congress and wanted Jayaprakash to come to join the Congress, or at least join the cabinet. Jayaprakash wanted the Congress to adopt a radical program, a 14 points program, specific constitutional amendments, administrative and land reform, nationalization of banks, insurance and mines. He was in agreement with many of Jayaprakash's points, but refused to enter a prior commitment. If he could have formulated and pursued his party to accept and implement such a radical program, he would not have needed socialist cooperation anyhow. And this was precisely so that he could do so after strengthening the left trend in the Congress. So that was the basic thing. So the socialists joined the Congress, but the prior condition not being met. So obviously this led to a problem. Now, Jayaprakash Narayan could not obviously move from his position, and he was afraid that this would just lead to a split in his own party. Further, his personal relationship with Jayaprakash Narayan also deteriorated, and by 1956, and it was thought that Jayaprakash would join any force to defeat the Congress. And he specifically accused Jayaprakash of supporting the Swatantra Party and encouraging the Hindu communist. And in turn, Jayaprakash accused Nehru of having deteriorated from a national leader to a partisan of the Congress. that he's forgotten about India and he just thinks about the Congress. Now, the socialist policy of anti-Congressism went far and obviously beyond the opposition to Congress on the basis of left or socialist critique. The other side of the medal was the fact that it weakened the socialists themselves and split their ranks, right? And with every split, some socialists joined the Congress. But even if we look at the socialism in the Congress, the problem is very simple. Every time, whether it was the Abadi resolution we declared, let me read that for you, planning should take place with a view to the establishment of a socialist pattern where the principal means of production were under social ownership or control. Production is progressive, speeded up, and there is equitable distribution of national wealth. The second and third five-year plans were also committed to socialist pattern. But what happened was, that till at least 1969, right, when Indira Gandhi came in and nationalization has started, this was mainly speaking and doing little, right? Every time they said that socialist pattern, right? He even tried to define this what would socialism mean, and he said it is not rigid or fixed, but not rooted in dogma or doctrine, but would develop according to India's tradition. Congress moved to the left again and again. In this Nagpur session also, he focused on cooperative farming, service cooperative to be there, and so on. But what happened was the Nagpur decisions failed, and land ceilings were just circumvented. Right, land reforms happened, but they failed in pretty much. And Nehru was pretty willing to learn and discard unworkable policies, except for land ceilings and other aspects of Nagpur were soon abandoned. And that was the reason. Now, understand with all this, I'm trying to appreciate the fact that District Congress was not taken very, very quickly. Nehru was there, his idealism was still there, there were a lot of freedom fighters in the Congress that maintained ideals. Now, the strong assertion of commitment to socialism did not stop the rot in Congress. There was a growing criticism, there were divisions, the old leadership was old now, and no suitable new leaders were coming. The party organization continued to weaken. The party had been in power for too long. They were no longer satisfied with party work. They hungered for official positions. Influence, patronage, administrative corruption was going beyond tolerable limits. The Congress was drifting away from the people, losing to the ground, to the opposition states. The growing weakness of the party was revealed in the 1963 prestigious Lok Sabha election, by-elections. And people had actually started to ask after Nehru who, and after Nehru what. Now, Nehru made a last ditch. And they said that let's do something known as the Kamraj Plan. And this is very important, right? And this can come in mains and prelims, right? So there was a meeting in August 1963. Basically, what it said was that leading members of the congressmen who were union cabinet ministers or chief ministers should resign from their post and take a party. And Nehru was to decide whose designation were to be finally be accepted. And this would also enable Nehru to cleanse the party at the top. There were 300 resignations from ministerials, and including all those of the Union Cabinet and all chief ministers. He accepted the resignation of 6 cabinet ministers: Morarji Desai, Lal Bahadur Shastri, S.K. Patil, Jagjeevan Ram, B. Gopala Reddy, K.L. Srimani, and 6 chief ministers. But the problem became that Nehru was already too old and suffered a stroke and did not have the energy following to take follow-up action. The leaders relieved from the position were not assigned any party duties, except K. Kamraj, who became the party president in January 64. They sulked and intrigued, and what actually happened was it affected Morarji Desai's position in the party. In time, he became the first non-Congress head of the long Congress was going downhill, and power of the party bosses was increased. So with that, we're stopping. We'll continue with